Yes, I have heard of Huawei before.
Because we live in Hong Kong and we're in China, so I've always thought of it as like a mobile phone company.
They sold a pretty good phone that was similar to Apple quality. But I wasn't really aware that they built the communication systems all around the world.
I heard about Huawei at the beginning when they were setting up communications in Mexico. And then when they launched the new phone for Google, and then they get this new phone with a lot of support from many artists.
On a vague sense, I knew they were a big brand in technology, a big presence in China, but I had no real understanding of the depth or breadth of their business.
I couldn't believe how big it was. It was massive.
The scale of it just kind of blew me away.
My impression overall is just how large the company really is, not just in China, but also its global footprint. And that theme of kind of pervasiveness came up time and again during the visit.
Huawei technology actually enables to observe people wherever they are. It kind of seems like Big Brother is watching you finally came real.
Take themselves seriously, and they seem to be very good at what they do. I think one of the things I was really impressed by, especially during the factory tour, was just seeing the attention to detail.
A Chinese firm was so westernized, but I think that from what I have seen to China and then going to Huawei is like among the highest tiers of facilities that I have visited, not just in China, but all around the world.
I learned a lot during our trip. I learned a lot about their business history. It's a really impressive company, not very old, it's only 30 years old. Started in emerging markets, which is really cool. Trying to bring technology to hard to reach places. And through that was able to become a world player in the technology that really enables us all to connect to the internet and do what we do and take for granted every day.
CEO rotation system, which I find kind of fascinating because I've never heard of that before. And they have a different way of thinking when it comes to community and to developing things together.
How they rotate through CEOs. Every few often it's a very much group effort versus a one Steve Jobs visionary type format. Manage people. And I think that was interesting from not only is it a private company, but it's also a very Chinese culture company coming from the US and European work experience. It was really interesting to see how they manage large-scale staff in a very precise way.
It was very interesting to learn how the whole company works and the whole structure, how they decided to create a company where everybody owns part of the company. That was something really impressive, and also I learned a lot how the vision for the future is moving, and I think I like how they're doing.
I learned that Huawei is really building the infrastructure for all the world's telecom. They're building out the 5G technology, they're building out the smart cities, and they're laying down the groundwork for the future of pretty much the world's technology.
They're really into the infrastructure, and not just in China, which is where I thought that they were previously focused. They're everywhere. They're in like 1 million different countries. They help a lot of different governments as well as private entities. So I guess I wasn't like, you only see the consumer side, as like a layman, and then now you get to see like this whole infrastructure that they've developed and improvements of like your telecom.
I think they seem pretty cool and be very comfortable, knowing where they're made, how they're made, what the process is. Yes, it's made in China, but honestly on campus it felt a little bit like it was made in Japan. The attention to quality was that kind of extreme, which was nice.
Huawei is not only a Chinese company, it became a worldwide company that has facilities all around the world. And I think it's more global than most of the people think. I always thought Huawei was purely a mobile phone business. Like I thought they were just the Apple of China. I didn't realize that they had an enterprise business. They had this cloud business. They really are a global presence.
Huawei, just by itself, by its name, sometimes sounds very Chinese, and I was expecting something more into the traditional Chinese business. And then once there, like I said, like the whole idea of how they're doing business really impressed me, and I was really surprised of how Huawei is working. And I think I clarified these misconceptions.
I don't know that I had misconceptions. I'd say I probably didn't know enough about them to begin with. I think the thing I did learn about them was the scale of their ambitions in terms of infrastructure around IoT and this type of stuff is a fair bit bigger than probably most people realise. Their journey towards being the size of company that they want to be in the future is something that's going to be very interesting to watch.
You know, there were some controversies about backdoors and security and privacy and things like that. Walter, who was with us the whole time, he was pretty upfront about it. He tried to address these kind of head on. I mean, they're trying to dispel a lot of the maybe misconceptions that people in the West have about Huawei as well as China and Chinese companies in general. I think some of them were allayed, and quite honestly, some of them probably weren't answered. And I think one of the guys, Joe Kelly, wasn't there that day to answer some of our harder questions about net neutrality and whatnot. But all in all, it seemed like they were pretty open and generous with the information, as well as their time.
I think I left with more questions than I went going in, which is always a good thing, right? Being more curious. You know, I think getting that type of experience to see into the window of how a company that's at the forefront of a lot of the technology and a lot of the issues that we're facing with internet, like net neutrality and so forth, was really interesting. And while we were able to have somewhat of a dialogue there, I think there's a lot more questions that we have, and looking forward to seeing what the future holds with Huawei laying down the pipes.